It's a chilly day in autumn, October 2015. John Brennan gets a strange phone call. He hesitates for a second, then answers. "Hello, John Brennan? Who is this?" A voice responds, "You're a loser." If John Brennan hadn't been the head of the CIA, this might have seemed like a harmless prank call, but he's one of the most powerful men on Earth. "Who is this? How did you get this number?" "It was so easy, bro. You're such a dork," the caller taunts. "What do you want?" Brennan asks. "I don't want anything. I already own you." "How much do you want?" "We want $5 trillion. The U.S. government will classify this call as part of a larger conspiracy of identity theft, harassment of government officials, and cyberterrorism." The caller is about to pay a heavy price for this moment of trollish glory. "Why are you doing this?" Brennan asks. "We want you to stop bombing the Middle East, cross the Atlantic, in a house in the West Midlands of England." A 15-year-old kid in his room hangs up the phone. He can't believe what he just did. He calls himself Cracker, and he loves to smoke weed. In fact, he's high right now. He's also the leader of Cracker with Attitude. He and his companions terrorized and embarrassed the U.S. security apparatus to an almost unimaginable degree. They leaked the personal data of police officers, FBI agents, and DOJ officials. They even hand-delivered top-secret documents to Julian Assange. Some of the most publicized activism attributed to Anonymous was actually their work. This was a political cyberattack by a teenager who hijacked the computers of several U.S. intelligence officials. Meanwhile, in Virginia in 2008, a different kid who only calls himself Default is a pretty typical American teenager. He loves soccer, video games, and his dog. He often clashes with his father, who works for the government. At some point, Default starts cheating in his video games. This gives him his first taste of using computers to do things he's not supposed to. Powerful, exciting things. He starts learning everything he can about how computers work and how to make them bend to his will. 2008 was an exciting time to get into hacking. The decentralized activist group Anonymous was in its heyday. If you managed to get into their secret chats, you got a front-row seat to their actions. Anonymous is one of the biggest online vigilante groups with members who hack into companies and governments. Now, a worldwide and widely recognized hacking group, they call themselves citizens of the world. "We have seen the erosion of due process," they've said in their cyberwar declarations. Anonymous has struck again. Young Default is fascinated. Anonymous embodies an exciting spirit of freedom through chaos. They showed how you could force the whole world to pay attention without ever leaving your bedroom. Some of their actions are political, some are just for trolling. After tasting this new kind of power, Default is eager to learn everything about hacking. He starts hacking random websites just for the challenge, just to see if he can. After hanging around Anonymous chats for a while, he starts to find the group cringe. For one thing, it's crawling with feds. People are getting arrested, and it's tough to know who to trust. Anonymous has become so big that vetting people is difficult. There's tons of infighting and doxing. Since it's the only activist group most media outlets know about, Anonymous keeps getting credited for the work of other, often more sophisticated hackers. It's a mess. So Default gets involved with offshoot hacker groups, one of them called Onesk. The group positions itself as anti-anonymous, but is similar in that they perform hacking initiatives that sometimes have a political purpose, and sometimes are just for the lulz. Onesk is quite advanced. Default gets better and better at the game. The group controls a botnet, which is a large network of infected computers under someone's control. You can use these computers to spread malware, making the botnet larger, or you can use it to attack a server to overload it. Default is exploring Ononsek's botnet and gets curious about what computers they've actually compromised. He finds a server for a Canadian medical school, Windsor University. Suddenly, Default has direct access to the university's finances. He pulls up records of students who owe the school money. It all adds up to $9.4 million. At the bottom of the list, he sees something very tempting. A delete all button. How could he not push it? These people might, really enjoy having their slate wiped clean, as it were, he later recalled. So, he deleted everything. "I went into the PHP shell and just sent everything to dev null, just shredded it. Whatever I sent there is just not coming back." It's from the podcast Darknet Diaries, which has a fantastic episode with Default. Of course, this story raises some questions. Tried asking the university if the debt stayed deleted. They did not answer. But usually, student loans have multiple online and offline backups, and there should be hard copies of the signed loan agreements. However, default feels like he's really doing something at the time. There is a certain rush to committing a crime when it feels like doing the right thing. Other hackers might have used the sensitive student information to make a profit. There's a shadow industry worth billions surrounding our most sensitive data. So-called data brokers gather all the info available about us on the internet, our contact information, browse history, and online transactions. This data is often bundled into shadow profiles, which are then sold. You might receive a tailored email or a robocall based on your shadow profile. In the worst case, someone might try to steal your identity. More and more of default's hacks are motivated by altruism rather than just curiosity. As recently as 2014, bestiality was legal in Denmark. Other European countries like Germany, the UK, and Sweden had recently banned it. What this meant for Denmark was an increase in animal sex tourism. For years, Danish animal rights activists tried to bring attention to this. They called them dog brothels. So sick, it's so crazy. I had a dog, so that really pissed me off just thinking about the fact. What if someone took my dog and that happened to my dog? I would freak out. As Default describes it, he and other Anonzec hackers lend their technical skills to the animal rights movement. We took down the official Denmark government website, and then we actually defaced it, and said, did you know that your government allows bestiality, and there's bestiality dens where people can go and pay money to do these things to animals? They shut down bestiality websites via DDoS attacks and tweeted evidence of sexually mistreated animals. The information reverberates around the world and is widely condemned. Anonymous gets credit for Anonzec's actions, which deeply annoys Default, but it works.
Oh.
In part due to the hacks, more people know about Danish dog brothels. They talk about them online and protest them until the case winds up in Parliament. In April 2015, Denmark finally bans bestiality. While Default is leveling up as a hacker, he also becomes an early adopter of crypto. Ultimately, it won't be enough. Back in May 2013, a 29-year-old U.S. intelligence contractor also has a lot to lose. He has his own home in Honolulu, a loving girlfriend, and a salary of over $200,000 per year. But he's discovered a huge secret. It's too big to keep. The U.S. government has the ability to spy on pretty much any man, woman, or child on Earth who has come into contact with a computer. And this contractor unwittingly helped make that technology possible. He is haunted by this information and horrified that his government is violating its public civil rights so egregiously. He knows that revealing this information to anyone, a lawyer, a judge, or even Congress, would be committing felonies so severe that he would spend a lifetime in prison. He's worried he'll never see his family again, and he doesn't know what consequences they'll face if he blows the whistle. But he has to do it. He's been quietly collecting evidence of this secret for a while, and he has just downloaded the last documents. He tells his employer, the U.S. government, that he needs a couple of weeks off to manage his epilepsy. This buys him a bit of time to leave the country without arousing suspicion. He chooses Hong Kong because he views it as a bastion of free speech. He believes it is one of the few places in the world that would protect him from the wrath of the U.S. government. There, he meets journalists Laura Poitras and Glenn Greenwald, and delivers evidence of what used to be waved off as a conspiracy theory. And so, Edward Snowden becomes one of the most important whistleblowers of our modern time. Snowden's revelations scandalize the world and spark a long overdue debate about individual privacy versus national security. He inspires many young Americans like Default to take a good, hard look at how their government functions. Default doesn't want to sit around and let surveillance happen to him. He wants high-ranking intelligence officials to know what it feels like to be spied upon, to have their private information stored and distributed, and to have it used against them. This is when he teams up with the Cracker with Attitude, founded by Cracker, the kid who's always high. Back in Leek, England, in 2015, in a housing estate on the outskirts of a sleepy former mining town, there's not a lot to do except get high or go online. In the case of 15-year-old Cracker, he spends his time doing both. He's angry about corruption and surveillance, but in particular about the US's involvement in the Middle East. He becomes especially focused on Palestine and sees the U.S. is directly responsible for death and suffering in Gaza. He decides to do something about it. This was political, he said. He was really angry about U.S. foreign policy. So he started a collective called Cracker with Attitude, and then hacked into sensitive documents online. One of his first victims is James Clapper, then the National Director of Intelligence for the Obama administration. Clapper, one of the highest-ranking members of the intelligence community, had his phone number and address waiting to be found with just one Google search. This provides Cracker with enough information to hack into his email. He posts proof of it on Twitter, which catches Default's attention. Cracker then gets the phone calls to Clapper's house phone rerouted to the Free Palestine movement. Default tweets his respect to Cracker, and the two start chatting. Edward Snowden himself has given James Clapper a very special shout-out in an interview with the German broadcaster Ard. Unfortunately, that interview was blocked from US and German television networks. Apparently, the video is immediately taken down every time it's posted on YouTube. I would say sort of the breaking point is seeing the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, directly lie under oath to Congress. Snowden said, "What we do not do is spy unlawfully on Americans, or for that matter, spy indiscriminately on the citizens of any country. We only spy for valid foreign intelligence purposes as authorized by law with multiple layers of oversight to ensure we do not abuse our authorities." Cracker and Default are livid. Cracker and other hackers loosely connected with CWA team up to target more high-ranking members of the intelligence community. They want to embarrass them and to show them that they aren't as powerful as they think they are. At the top of their list is John Brennan, head of the CIA. Brennan, like Clapper, has enough information online that he basically doxes himself. Cracker looks up his publicly posted phone number and finds out it's a Verizon number. Calls up Verizon's internal tech support and pretends to be an on-site technician who's having trouble helping a customer. On-site tech support asks Cracker for his employee code, and he just makes one up on the spot. It works. The support technician provides Cracker with access, and suddenly he has the account number, the PIN, and John Brennan's private email address. If you have just enough information on someone pieced together from different sources, say their address, and the last 4 digits of their social security number, you can easily change the passwords on all kinds of accounts and take it over. And that's exactly what Cracker does with Brennan's AOL account. Once he's in the email account, Cracker gets Brennan's private cell number and shares it with Default. So they start spam calling the director of the CIA, relentlessly calling him and his family. "I told him he was a piece of SHT," Default later said. Basically like, "You are awful people. Like really. You're not doing any net positive things for the world. You're just not." John Brennan is freaked out. Sure, the calls are a little more than a prank, but how could he know that at the time? Nobody knew who was behind the calls or what their intentions were. Brennan has to lay low for a while, in hiding with extra security details for himself and his family. At the same time, Cracker's breach into Brennan's email gives him access to sensitive documents. Cracker first posts screenshots on Twitter, but then, egged on by Default and maybe asking himself, what would Snowden do? He decides to hit up WikiLeaks. Julian Assange himself takes interest. He publishes the documents in October 2015. They include Brennan's 47-page SF-86 application, a sensitive form required for obtaining top-secret government security clearance. The form reveals his criminal history, psychological records, past drug abuse, and other details nobody would want about themselves online. Not only that, from Brennan's emails, WikiLeaks publishes Bush-era recommendations for how the presidency should operate in the Middle East. There's also an internal congressional correspondence from the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence that offered suggestions on how to make future interrogation methods, also known as torture-compliant and legal. The breach cost the agency $1.5 million in damages and relocation costs, as several operatives went into hiding not knowing the true threat level. But above all, it was widely embarrassing. Hacking into Brennan's email was laughably easy. "It's true that you guys have actually broken into his private email account," an interviewer noted. "How difficult would you say it is?" "Out of 10. 1, Cracker replied. "It's a lot of, private information. Really pretty stupid, really. He's supposed to be so high in the government, like head of the CIA. He should be more clever." "Can you give us any indication of your background? How old you are? Are you in the United States? Anything you can tell me about yourself?" the interviewer asks. "Yeah, I'm below the age of 20 years old. I smoke pot and I live in America, and you smoke pot every day." Cracker laughs. We wonder what John Brennan must have thought while undoubtedly watching this in his relocation house. What fury must have built up inside him. The CWA aren't done. They release more and more information. With control over clappers and other operatives' accounts, it's even easier to get people to give up information to access further accounts and databases. They gain access to FBI Deputy Director Mark Giuliano's account. There they discover a database with personal information of 9,000 Department of Justice officials and 20,000 FBI agents. They post it. They then get access to the Justice Department's Joint Automated Booking System, which has records on all U.S. prisoners. They check out the records of fellow hackers like Jeremy Hammond and post those online as well. They wreak havoc and embarrass one institution after another. Did these kids really think that they were going to get away with it? At the time, I really didn't care. Default later said. That was towards the end of the run, and I was just like, all bets are off, you know? I'd gone all the way down the rabbit hole. I'd just become very disillusioned with people, as complacency, and their lack of care for what was going on. So it's like we're going to bring attention to this with like chaos and mayhem. Cracker knows his actions have poked a very big bear. He knows there will be consequences, just doesn't know what they'll exactly be. I'm going to go to Russia and with Snowden, because I know that the government are pretty mad about this. I'm probably going to get tortured. I'm actually a pretty fast runner. Default is paranoid the whole time, constantly worried about his OPSEC, but he lets his guard down. Default became involved with an ex-girlfriend of one of his friends. According to him, he asked his friend in advance if it was okay with him. The friend says, sure, go for it. He's way over it. But he isn't. Default and his friend are hanging out one night, drinking and chatting over Xbox Live. Default slips up. What? For the first time ever, being arrogant and cocky, it comes on the news. CIA director hack. Blah, blah, blah. All this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that was us. Blah, blah. I was like drunk talking and just totally like gave myself away. He never thought his friend would do anything with that information. He didn't even think his friend would necessarily believe him. Today, Default is pretty sure this friend turned him in. When the FBI raids you, they don't knock politely. FBI agents enter a false room just as his computer finishes decrypting. They're pointing assault rifles in his face. They drag him out of his room, flash copy his hard drive before it re-encrypts, and seize all of his equipment. Default knows he's finished. But the worst part is watching the agents carry off his hard drive, the hard drive with nearly 1,000 Bitcoin. He blacks out. Cracker 2 gets raided by the British police forces, and his computers are confiscated. This team is clear that another CWA member gets arrested in the US and 3 more in the UK. Since Cracker was underage and in the United Kingdom, got a lenient sentence. He spent 2 years in a juvenile detention center. He was the first minor in the UK to be imprisoned for hacking. Today, he's keeping his head down and is done with crime. He just wants to make a career in cybersecurity and move on with his life. Did not want to give us an interview. Default, even though he was less involved, paid a much higher price. He went straight to federal prison with a 5-year sentence. He had to pay $145,000 in restitution, and due to COVID regulations, spent a significant amount of that time in solitary confinement. While pleading in court, he said, I thought what I was doing was right in terms of political justice. But 2 years later, I realized I was completely wrong. Snowden, too, didn't have a relaxed time fighting for asylum in Russia. Shortly after his leak, intelligence officials publicly fantasized about killing him. Who truly understands the significance of what you re-leaking, or a stoned teen furious at the world's injustices? Messing with the US government will change the course of your life forever, so make sure it's worth it. In December 2023, the Biden administration renewed a very controversial surveillance program. The act allows the administration to spy on anyone in the world without a warrant, including its own citizens. It includes a vast database of electronic communications. It's supposed to be accessed only when there's a legitimate reason to believe it will assist intelligence operations. But a U.S. court ruling in 2023 found that the FBI has already misused this database 278,000 times. Unlawful searches were particularly rampant between 2016 and 2020. They've snooped in the private communications of donors to various congressional candidates. They've been watching suspected January 6th rioters. And they've also been surveilling Black Lives Matter protesters. Maybe they're even surveilling us.